Well, Hermès says, made in China, does it feel cheaper? No, that's not a quality issue. It's luxury brand washing.
These are pieces of artwork. These artisans train years and years to make one of these bags.
What if your $25,000 Hermes bag wasn't handcrafted in a candlelit Parisian atelier, but stitched together in a factory thousands of miles away? What if everything you believed about luxury was a carefully curated illusion? Chinese manufacturers have stepped forward with shocking claims and behind-the-scenes footage. According to the factory workers themselves, these bags are the real deal. And when the footage hit social media, the luxury world panicked. It came straight from the factory floor itself. Several Chinese manufacturers began releasing videos, photos, and detailed accounts of what they claim is the true source of Hermes' most coveted bags.
This is why this bag from our factory only costs you 1,000 USD.
Have you all seen that TikTok by the Chinese guy exposing how luxury goods are actually made? The only real difference? China ships the products to Europe, slaps on a Made in France or Made in Italy label, and boom, luxury? It's ridiculous.
This was sharp, clear footage of Kelly's and Birkins being stitched together by workers in production lines, not artisanal studios like the companies always claimed. Workers laid out exotic leathers, attached gold-plated hardware, and finished seams with stunning precision. According to the manufacturers, Hermes doesn't produce all of its inventory inside French workshops. Instead, allegedly a significant portion is made in high-efficiency Chinese factories that operate behind the scenes. Some even say they've been contracted directly to meet demand that traditional workshops simply can't keep up with, and the manufacturers didn't hide their identities. They weren't whispering anonymously. They spoke directly to the camera, mocking the industry's obsession with labels and price tags. One viral clip featured a factory worker holding up a completed Kelly bag and saying, "This costs you $25,000. It cost us less than $600 to make." This truth soon brought an uprising across social media. What made the situation even more explosive was the tone. This was a declaration. These workers weren't just revealing what went on behind the scenes, they were proudly exposing what they saw as the truth behind a decades-long facade. It started with a few curious clips on TikTok, but what followed was an outburst. Within days, the internet was flooded with behind-the-scenes videos from Chinese factories, each one worse than the last. Bags that looked indistinguishable from official Hermes models were shown being produced step by step, from cutting premium leather to precision stitching, right down to the iconic finishing touches. These were exact copies. The caption said it all. Same leather, same stitching, same bag. Some claim these were official Hermes bags, just made far from the romanticized workshops the brand loves to spotlight. That's when the conversation shifted. This wasn't about fakes anymore, it was about authenticity. The factory workers, some of whom openly identified themselves as former or current Hermes subcontractors, began addressing questions directly. They broke down material costs, timelines, even how certain batches were sent through Europe to get the coveted Made in France stamp before landing in luxury boutiques. According to them, the final tag was often just a formality. One worker claimed, "It ships here from China, we add a clasp in France, and it's suddenly European luxury." Influencers, fashion bloggers, and even longtime Hermes collectors began reposting the clips with stunned reactions. Comments exploded with disbelief. Others weren't surprised at all. The idea that luxury could be outsourced like fast fashion wasn't new, but seeing it so plainly laid out, that was different.
My point is, I think it's crazy how designer brands have been selling things for thousands when China sell them on and literally they're so cheap. If the Chinese manufacturers are making the same, like the actual Birkins, and then they are also selling these on the side as well, technically this is an absolute bargain because it's the exact same material as a Birkin.
For years, Hermes cultivated a myth of authenticity and craftsmanship, but now people were watching real-time evidence of mass-scale factory production. And if these bags were really being made in Chinese shops, then the exclusivity that people were paying for was gone. Hermes didn't wait long to strike back. Within days, cease and desist letters were flying out, lawsuits were filed, and the company launched an aggressive PR attempt. The allegations, according to Hermes, were not only false, they were defamatory. In official statements, they dismissed the viral videos as a coordinated smear campaign, accusing the factories of intellectual property theft and brand sabotage. But behind closed doors, insiders painted a more chaotic picture. Leaked internal memos reportedly warned executives that this was a credibility crisis. And unlike previous scandals, the damage wasn't confined to underground markets or shady replicas. This was a break in the company's image, and it was unfolding in front of millions. What alarmed executives most was the specificity of the claims. The footage showed step-by-step production, complete with luxury-grade tools, authentic materials, and workers who spoke confidently about procedures that mirrored Hermès' own. Despite Hermès' attempts to distance itself from the factories, skeptics weren't convinced. The brand's reputation had long relied on an image of transparency, artisanal mastery, and heritage. But now those very foundations were under scrutiny. The public wanted proof. But instead of offering transparency, Hermès responded with secrecy and litigation, and the silence only fueled suspicion.
Hermès, you guys, it's time to show off your factories. No, I don't want to wait to go on YouTube and watch a beautiful documentary on show them off right here on TikTok. Let the world see. Okay, get like China. You gotta be ghetto about it. Just let people know.
Media outlets began probing deeper, questioning the possibility of Hermès meeting global demand with a limited number of French artisans. Reports surfaced suggesting that Hermès' supply chain was more complex than advertised, and perhaps not as tightly controlled. Meanwhile, on social media, users mocked the brand's outrage. "If you're telling the truth," one viral comment read, "why are you hiding behind lawyers instead of cameras?" As Hermès tried to contain the fallout, the backlash only intensified. Because in the world of luxury, the harder they fought to prove the narrative wrong, the more people began to believe it was right. TikTok creators began dissecting every second of the leaked footage and comparing it side by side with official Hermès marketing. The results were disturbing. In video after video, bags from alleged Chinese factories looked nearly identical to those sold at Hermès boutiques for tens of thousands of dollars. Suddenly, the mystique that Hermès had spent decades cultivating was falling. Users weren't just questioning the legitimacy of their own purchases, they were calling out the entire luxury system. Why did I spend $20K on a bag that might have been made in the same room as a dupe? One comment read. Another asked, if it's all branding, why not just buy the factory version for a fraction of the price? Even luxury resellers and collectors who had built reputations and businesses on the prestige of brands like Hermès started pulling listings, issuing vague authentication updates, or vanishing altogether. Some admitted privately that they couldn't tell the difference between the factory-leaked bags and the ones they'd been selling for years. Buyers began contacting insurance companies to reassess the value of their collections. Even long-standing customers started posting videos demanding transparency. Hermès, once untouchable, was now being dragged by the very audience it had spent decades trying to impress. In the age of receipts, the myth of unquestionable luxury was breaking down in real time. If everything looks the same, feels the same, and is made the same, was the difference ever real to begin with? Hermès may have been the first to get exposed, but it didn't take long for the spotlight to widen. If Hermès, the gold standard of exclusivity, was allegedly linked to cheap mass production, what did that say about the rest of the industry users? Online began dropping receipts on other major brands, Prada, Louis Vuitton, even Chanel. Claims emerged that some of Prada's signature handbags were partially assembled in Chinese factories before being shipped to Europe for final touches, just enough to earn the coveted Made in Italy label. Louis Vuitton wasn't spared either. Multiple reports resurfaced, alleging that several of their monogram pieces were being produced in places like Spain and the United States, yet still carried inflated European price tags. Consumers who had once justified these prices based on heritage and craftsmanship were now realizing they might have just been paying for a logo. Chanel's silence didn't help. While Hermès was lawyering up, Chanel offered no response at all. And in the court of public opinion, silence often sounds a lot like guilt. As the internet dug deeper, former factory workers began stepping forward, claiming they had worked across multiple luxury brands, sometimes even in the same facility. What shocked consumers most was the realization that the luxury they'd been sold for years, heritage, scarcity, and meticulous handcrafting, may have been little more than a polished narrative. And while it wasn't illegal for companies to outsource or use global supply chains, it was the deception that hurt. The illusion that these products were the result of meticulous processes tucked away in European workshops had been shattered. Fashion world wasn't just facing a scandal, it was an awakening, and the message was loud and clear. If Hermès can fall, anyone can. This was a scandal about perception, trust, and the invisible price of prestige. The leaked footage didn't just expose where Hermès bags may have been made, it exposed the psychology behind luxury itself. For decades, high-end brands sold identity, status, and the feeling of being part of an exclusive world. Now, all of that was being challenged by factory workers with receipts. What the public began to realize was the markup of these products. The massive leap from a $600 production cost to a $30,000 price tag was no longer about the bag itself. It was about about the mythology surrounding it. Consumers were paying for a story, a fantasy of rare French artisans spending hours hand-stitching each piece in candlelit shops. But when people watched workers in Chinese factories using the same stitching patterns, the illusion cracked. The skill was still there, but it wasn't wrapped in old-world charm. It was efficiency, not mystique. And for many buyers, that changed everything. This was a revelation that the luxury industry operates on perception, not transparency. The idea that made in China equals inferior quality is being dismantled in real time, because if a bag made in a modern Chinese factory is indistinguishable from one sold in a Paris boutique, then what exactly are people paying for? According to the factory workers at the center of this controversy, the cost of producing a Birkin or Kelly bag hovers around $600. That includes high-grade leather, precision hardware, skilled labor, and factory overhead. Now compare that to the retail price, $15,000, $25,000, even $40,000 for more exclusive models. People are finally starting to ask, what exactly justifies it? Hermès has long argued that their prices reflect more than the materials. They claim it's about heritage, exclusivity, and the legacy of handcrafted perfection. But after the leaks, those justifications feel fake. For many, it now looks like a story designed to mask a brutal truth. Consumers aren't buying a product, they're buying into a fantasy. Online, creators posted side-by-side comparisons with dupes so convincing that even longtime collectors were second-guessing their own bags. One viral post read, "If the bag cost $600 to make and I paid $25K, I didn't buy a luxury item, I bought a delusion." The resale market, which had been a thriving ecosystem for Hermès collectors and investors, began to collapse. Some platforms quietly pulled listings while they reassessed their procedures. The uncertainty hit every level of the luxury chain, from casual buyers to high-end auction houses. For many consumers, the fallout was personal. The bag wasn't just a fashion statement, it was a symbol of success, of arrival. Now, with that symbol under scrutiny, buyers were left feeling embarrassed, even betrayed. In the end, the real cost of this illusion wasn't just monetary, it was emotional. It shattered the pride that came with owning an Hermès, and that loss is more devastating than any lawsuit or PR nightmare that no amount of branding can buy that back. Hermès may still be winning in court, but in the court of public opinion, the damage is done. The people started questioning the entire premise of luxury, and no matter how many legal threats Hermès sends or how strongly they deny the claims, the trust that once covered their brand like a status symbol has been pierced. Behind the scenes, insiders say internal strategy teams are reportedly scrambling to double down on heritage messaging while quietly tightening control over supply chains. But damage control only works when the public still believes. And right now, belief is in short supply. Across social media, former fans and longtime collectors have become critics. Even celebrities have started distancing themselves, avoiding Hermès endorsements or public appearances with the brand. The silence speaks volumes. If Hermès, the pinnacle of craftsmanship and authenticity, was vulnerable to exposure, who's next? Consumers want transparency, not myths. They're demanding proof, not promises. The brands that can't deliver will find themselves swept away soon enough. Luxury has always been about more than leather and stitching. It's been about aspiration, illusion, and emotional investment. But illusions don't survive in an age of receipts, exposés, and accountability. For Hermès, the road ahead isn't just about restoring reputation. It's about redefining what luxury means. The new era demands honesty, visibility, and proof. And for a brand that once thrived in shadows, that shift may be the hardest of all. So what does luxury even mean when the truth is laid bare? A price tag, a logo, or just the uncomfortable feeling that you've been sold more fantasy than fashion? The Hermès scandal didn't just expose a brand, it exposed an industry that depends on mystery to justify its worth. Now the mystique is fading, and consumers are waking up. This isn't about a bag anymore. It's about trust, perception, and the cost of believing in a beautiful lie. Because once the truth is out, there's no going back, and the luxury world may never look the same again.